Welcome to Prepare For Takeoff. I'm the creator and host, Terry L. Cyrus. We're the podcast dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. Every week, we sit down with a proven professional or rising entrepreneur. This week, we're sitting down with entrepreneur, professor, and cybersecurity expert, Dr. Carlous Caple. Dr. Caple, what's going on?
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
And thank you. Appreciate you giving us some of your time, coming to us from the Tar Heel State, North Carolina, Durham to be exact. There's a lot of richness in that area, to say the least. A lot of people, they're familiar with Tulsa and all of the things that happened there. Black Wall Street, they didn't realize that they had the same setup as far as that Black excellence, if you will, that was taking place back in the Carolinas, and it was centered around Durham. But before we get into all of that, man, kind of wanted to just give you the opportunity to share with our viewers and listeners, how did it all start for you?
For me, it all started with an interest in a background in psychology coming out of high school. I went to a very traditional Black high school, very traditional community. We call it the Hayti District, which was actually is well known as the Black Wall Street. So I had a lot of influence in terms of career paths and directions that I should go. As I got into high school, I became very interested in psychology, but not for the reasons that people think a person would get involved in psychology for. Of course, I wanted to do clinical psychology, but my goal and ambition at the time was to be a professional actor. So those things kind of just snowballed. I went to college on the encouragement of my parents, and from there picked up psychology and began moving toward organizational psychology, which is really a focus on change management in corporate structures.
So one of your first things that you saw yourself doing was being an actor. So when did that happen? Like, were you a kid? Did you see somebody on television? I always say the representation is extremely important. And I know growing up, when I seen people that looked like me, it made me feel as though that's something that I could do myself. So how did you get that acting bug?
Yeah, so the acting bug, I think probably in my family, I am considered the ham. So I was the kid that was kind of pestering for attention, clamoring for attention. In terms of the acting bug, in high school, I was introduced to a drama teacher, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Marlette. And he said, "You have vocal diction skills. Would you be interested in doing radio?" I had an English teacher who took a group of us as a class project to a local radio station, and we did some Black History Month, a type of vignettes. And as I got to my senior year, I really became extremely interested in it and got 5 commercial vignettes with the Child Advocacy Institute of North Carolina at that time. And it was kind of a teenagers, I love you, pregnancy prevention type of vignette that they would show on the local television stations. And that just blew my mind. I was ready. I said, I'm hot for this now. But when I graduated that very summer, The Color Purple was being filmed in Anson County, North Carolina, which is, if people don't know, that's a very rural area. And that's where they filmed The Color Purple in a town called Lylesville. Now, what's interesting about my family is that both of my parents are from that area. So I spent my summers with my aunts and uncles and cousins in that area the whole summer. When other students were going to summer school, I was picking peaches or learning more about having to get up early in the morning and chop wood with my uncle, that type of thing. But that summer that I graduated high school, they did a production run for a production company called Moonsong Productions. I'll never forget it. And I said, I'll go and be an extra. And a lot of my family members were extras in the movie. And as an extra, I got to meet Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover, Andre Crouch, Quincy Jones, Oprah Winfrey. And I was among these luminaries, like I'm sitting here talking with you right now, eating fried chicken and talking just basic. These were just regular people. They weren't luminaries in the sense that they were over the top. I'm a Hollywood agent or of that type of thing. I could walk up and talk to Steven Spielberg on the set and have a conversation with him. And one of my conversations was, I really would like to get a speaking role in this movie. And he said, okay, let's get you ready. So at the time, I had grown my hair kind of long down on my shoulders. And they took me into a moving studio, mobile studio, and they cut my hair. They put a flat pad on me, and I did not look my age. I looked like I was about 10 or 11 years old. And they said, "This is your scene. You're going to run up to the church in this scene where the Seeley's father is getting married to a young bride, and you're going to scream out, 'No!'" And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, I'm in this, which means production credit. You're going to get listed as a cast member, you're going to be listed as an actor. And also, from a pay perspective, every time that movie ran or was produced in some location, I got a residual.
Mm-hmm.
My scene never did make the movie, it was cut and put on the floor, but I still earned the residuals years later in doing that. So that was my initial entree into the Hollywood side of it. From there, while I was in college, I got a chance to do One Life to Live, which was a very popular soap opera on ABC at the time. And they filmed some scenes at Duke University. So I spent a lot of time around the production crew, around people that were telling me, giving me tips and tricks to do and to get my name listed as a character. There was also the opportunity to do the movie called The White Girl, which was a Tony Brown production. I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Brown, but he used to host a weekly show on public television, Tony Brown's Journal. And he
Absolutely.
produced a movie that was here called The White Girl. It was Troy Bayer. One of her first acting roles was here in North Carolina. Got to meet her, and I worked with production. And I forget the young lady's name, but I remember her first name was Cynthia. She was production. She said, "If you come in and you help me with the casting, I'll ensure that you get some type of speaking role on the show." And that snowballed. After One Life to Live, I got telenovela, which is the Spanish soap opera called Nuestro Barrio. And I got a chance to speak some blurbs of Spanish. My Spanish was not good, but I could speak it and dialect it and enunciate correctly to speak it enough for the show. And I played a bartender. So those things were happening as I was moving through the processes of wanting to be an actor. But the reality of this of things was I was here in Durham. I wasn't in Los Angeles or New York, which would have made a huge difference in terms of what I was doing career wise. And some years later, I actually moved to Los Angeles to pursue it and reconnected with Andre Crouch, who was the gospel singer, who is also my godfather. I'll just throw that out there. That's a little connect there.
Right.
He said, if you get involved with the church, you'll meet writers, producers, actors, directors, people that will help you get your foot solid into this industry. And
Right.
it's not going to be easy. So you're going to have to really hustle when you come out here. And so that's my entree into acting. And a lot of people that know me closely kind of tease me, why didn't you go and pursue it? Why did you go to teaching as opposed to really going and pursuing acting? Teaching is my bloodline. That's my family's legacy. I come from a long line of educators, and that's kind of the trajectory that I pursued. Yeah, acting was my first love. It still is my first love, and I would love to do that career wise. I follow people like Morgan Freeman and Denzel, of course. I'm really savvy on all of Spike Lee's joints. So I love everything about the industry and what it produces.
Mm-hmm. Well, shout out to Tony Brown, man. Tony Brown is actually from my hometown of Charleston, West Virginia.
Wow.
My English teacher went to high school with him at Garnet High, which was the black high school. That was the high school to be at in the state of West Virginia, realizing that it was centered in an area called the Block, which was a very revered area for black excellence in Charleston, West Virginia. In fact, the next block over is where I was born and raised in a church called Simpson Memorial United Methodist Church. And it has a lot of lineage there, including one of the founders of my fraternity being a bishop at that church, the Honorable Bishop Edgar A. Love. So there's a lot of history there that's not just connected to my fraternity, but also a lot of history that's connected to the community at large. And to know that someone like that ascended, garnered with somebody that poured into me at an early age. That was something that she always made it a point to let us know, that there's a lot of people from this area that have went on to do great things. And that's why representation is so important,
Yeah.
because you don't always have enough of those examples. And another person that was from my hometown actually used to live in my neighborhood, and he was driving this bucket, as we called it. He has a brown hoopty, and he was so under resourced. Let's just call him. Okay, let's keep it a buck. He was broke. So dude was so broke he couldn't even fix his bumper. So he used to have a rope holding his bumper up.
Yeah.
We didn't know who this guy was, man. We're kids. We're clowning him. Like, whoever's driving that car, we got jokes. Guess who was driving that car?
Who was it?
TD Jakes.
Wow. Wow.
You never know.
You never know.
But I always say to people, humble beginnings, it can mold the man or woman that you become, whether you're from a rural community, whether you're from urban community that's under-resourced, whatever's in you, you have no idea what can spark that. So it was sparked in you being the ham of the family, because I can relate to that, because that was kind of me. I was a bit of a ham, liked attention, and seeing people who look like me on television. So that's why I was curious to know what put you on that trajectory, because for me, I seen somebody on television that looked like me. It was Gary Coleman. And I'm like, oh, it's a little black boy. He's about my size. If he can do that, I can do that. And he has all these eyeballs every week just tuning into him, and whatever it is he's doing, he gets a laugh. So that was something that was of interest to me. But surprisingly, television was of interest. It really wasn't. I really didn't want to do any plays. I wanted to skip all of that and go right to the screen, to the point where I called the local news station and asked them, can I do a commercial? And it was apparent, based on how my voice sounded, I was a child. They were like, where's your mom at?
Right.
How do you even know to reach out to us? But I was like, listen, this is the station that I watch. Gary Coleman comes on this station. So in my mind, these are the people that must be responsible for putting them on television. So I went in the yellow pages when that was a thing and called them up and said, can I be on television? And obviously they was like, well, that's not how it works. But I always had that ambitious spirit. And it sounds like you had that ambitious spirit as well. And what I will say, Dr. Caple, is never too late. I know somebody who had an entire different career. And to be exact, they worked at Rikers Island.
Wow. Okay.
Completely different career. They relocated to Atlanta and they started pursuing acting, started doing extra work, and that led to doing speaking roles. And man, he's doing his thing. I say to people all the time, it's never too late. And I've heard that from a number of different people, including people that's been on the show, like Rashawn McDonald, who you may or may not know. That's Steve Harvey's former manager and business partner. You know, one of the things he shared was it's never too late. So it's never too late, bro. They have actors of all ages. And it's not like, and what I will say to people who say they want to rap, I'm like, it might be too late. But as far as acting, it's never too late. But before we digress any further, I want to see how you went from there to becoming a cybersecurity expert. How did that transition happen?
So that was by a fluke, actually.
Okay.
I spent a number of years as a college professor in the field of education, and my interest at the time had turned to information technology, specifically instructional technology. I majored in psychology, graduated, and decided to go to graduate school in psychology. The transition from an undergraduate platform to a graduate platform was not good. I found that the graduate level of psychology was a little more intense, a little more medically oriented. And I looked into it, I pursued it for about a semester. And I just felt like it wasn't for me. At the same time, I was introduced to a person who became my mentor. He was the actual program director of a graduate program in instructional technologies. His name was Dr. Marvin E. Duncan. And this was at North Carolina Central University. Dr. Duncan introduced me to technology in a way that at the time we had no concept of. I mean, email and internet at that time was something that you read about, and it was high level, It wasn't anything that, was within reach. We were using computers. We were saving documents and stuff on 5 1/4 disk, the floppy disk. I had, for me, and I've written a book about it, my experience in terms of how I transitioned into technology. For me, I did all of my papers on an IBM Selectric typewriter that I
Mm,
rented for $25. I could rent that typewriter. And the lady I was renting the typewriter from, when I went into her shop, it was like a pawn shop. There were hundreds of typewriters and printing machines, stuff that was outdated, surplus. And she said, "Well, why are you coming and renting this typewriter? Why don't you just buy it? I'll sell it to you for $100." So I'd already rented it for 25. She said, "Give me $75. Typewriter's yours." An IBM Selectric typewriter. You had to put in the ribbon, you had to backspace and put a little white tape in there
mhm.
to make corrections. I fell in love with it. I wrote all of my papers in undergrad and grad on that. I didn't own a computer until 1993.
Mm.
And the first computer I bought was a Mac Write 2 from Sears.
This mysterious was still open.
The Sears was still open. I didn't know anything about computers, but I knew I had these papers I had to write on a graduate level. Dr. Duncan introduced that to me, the concept of how to teach and instruct with technology was becoming a concept to me. From there, he persuaded me to go on and pursue further graduate studies to earn my doctorate. I went to North Carolina State University and I majored in math, science, and technology education. But the primary focus of my degree was in technology. And that was kind of encompassing all things that related to the development of the World Wide Web, but specifically multimedia and software prototyping. So, how do we begin to create and structure software to enhance learning? Part of my dissertation topic focused on, going back to psychology, spaced practice and spaced review, and how we can incorporate that into software development to enhance learning for learners. So that was a big part of my graduate study. And I eventually earned the moniker world renowned expert on cognitive strategies and spaced practice. So I
Mm.
am the person world renowned on cognitive strategies in terms of embedding that into software development and multimedia development. From there, I became a college professor. My first foray into that was with Shaw University out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I met a guy, and just by fluke, my car ran out of gas. And this gentleman pulled over to help me, and I had an old 1972 Oldsmobile that would guzzle gas. If I pressed on the gas, that car would go from a quarter tank down to zilch. And I
Right.
knew I didn't have any gas. I'm embarrassed by that, but at the same time, you never know when opportunity, like you're saying, you saw TD Jakes with the tied up bumper. This gentleman pulled over. He helped me get gas in my car. He said, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, right now I'm a graduate student and I'm majoring in instructional technologies. I've done psychology and, I've done these things." He said, "Would you be interested in teaching at Shaw University?" What?
Like,
Shaw
yeah.
University. Yeah,
When do I
well, that's
start?
a no-brainer for me. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any real ambition for a salary. So yeah, let me take that opportunity. And let me tell you this, before I went to Shaw University, I spent 1 full year as a kindergarten teacher.
Get out of here.
And that was a fluke. As a graduate student, I went to my former high school, middle school algebra teacher who had become the principal of an elementary school, the elementary school that I attended as a kid. And I asked her, I said, I'm looking for a job. Do you have anything? She said, "Sure. Come back Monday morning. I got something for you." And I was like, okay, this is quick, fast, in a hurry.
Right.
She's already got me placed.
Right.
And she sent me down into a classroom with 25 5-year-olds. And the teacher that I was working with had health issues, so she could not complete the full year. So I was left with managing a classroom of 25 5-year-olds. That was a learning experience, but it was the feeder to working with college students.
Mm.
That was instrumental in me becoming effective as a college professor. I went to Shaw that next year teaching in psychology. I taught experimental psychology and human behavior. The very next year, I was offered an opportunity to teach in communication, mass communications, and work with the WSHA radio station at Shaw University. So the technology that I was gaining as a graduate student and my experiences with my mentor prepared me to make those transitions very smoothly into working in a college career as a faculty member. I taught there for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then I graduated from NC State. And my first real full time uh, assistant professor job was at Winston-Salem State University in education, teacher education specifically. I managed students getting ready for the praxis exam, which is a licensing exam. And from there, those experiences taught me more about working with people, specifically our people, and how we make adjustments to modify learning and to assist people in their need more so than what their want is in terms of pursuing a degree. And I left there and went to North Carolina A&T State University to teach in graduate education in instructional technology. So I had a number of students I was helping write their theses, and things just began to snowball. So opportunities have been placed squarely in my lap, and I had to learn how to quickly adjust and adapt to those situations. But that prepared me for moving into becoming a business owner. And I'll tell you that one of the first experiences that helped me transition from the university was working with the U.S. Army and their training and doctrine command. I had done a couple of conferences. I had a couple of people that had recognized my work. I had the moniker of world-renowned professional with cognitive strategies. And I had gone to a conference for NASA, and I met some people there. One of them happened to be a member of the United States Army Council of Colonels. And he sat me down. He said, "Man, I saw you do this presentation. I'm, I want your presentation for my officers candidate school." I said, "Well, sure. Give me your email and I'll send this to you, and you can have at it. I don't own it. Whatever you create at the university is the university's intellectual property. So I
Mhm.
had no ownership to it." He said, "But no, I want you to come and do this." So I got hired by Lockheed Martin to come to Fort Monroe, Virginia, and sit down with the Council of Colonels and TRADOC and map out a strategy for training officers who were being deployed overseas to Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, mind you, this is post 9/11. So that was the catalyst, that was the trigger. Here we were in the throes of war, and our officers who were in officers candidate school couldn't complete training. So how were they going to receive that training? That's where I came in. And I started developing small training modules that they could take in chunks and receive through an MP4 player. And it snowballed from there. And I was told, the best way to do this is to form a business. Form an LLC and contract yourself out as a 1099.
Mhm.
And it's been on and popping ever since. It's been on it. Now, cybersecurity, when it comes to that, I started learning the game on federal contracting and how to get into federal contracting, specifically as a minority contractor. And not as a prime, but as a subprime. Somebody who can do small bits of work and take that small bits of work and supply it to the prime contractor, who can then use it to enhance the contract that they have and provide services and benefits to federal agencies. My first foray into that was with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thinking about starting your own business? Make it real with Shopify. the all-in-one platform trusted by millions to sell online and in person, whether it's merch, art, or digital goods. Shopify gives you the tools to build, grow, and succeed. And here's the best part. When you sign up using the affiliate link in our show notes, you're supporting Prepare for Takeoff and starting your business off right. Click the link and start your free trial today. It's so funny because I know people who play in that contract space as it relates to subcontracting and things of that nature. How did you find your way into that?
Just by, again, fluke, talking to people, going to various conferences and workshops and kind of learning, and hearing opportunities and really listening to the fact that here is this opportunity, but not a lot of people are going to bite. One of the dynamic things about the state of North Carolina is that this is a military state.
Mm-hmm.
In its truest sense. You have Fort Bragg. It's gone through a name transition. Fort Liberty, now it's back to Fort Bragg. But Fort Bragg is kind of the basis for all Army personnel to come in and train. And from there, you go out and you go to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. You go to Fort Benning in Georgia, Fort Gordon, places like that.
Mm-hmm.
In Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I got introduced to the various units that the Army has, the chemical, the MPs, and so forth, military police, those types, Army Corps of Engineers, and how they break down their structures in terms of learning. But here in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Military Institute, which is a part of the community college system. And that's something that we don't typically pay attention to. But there are so many opportunities through community colleges. And to be honest, a large amount of funding is funneled through to community colleges, not universities. And I learned that when I was a professor. And I, found that there were students who had skill sets that they developed at the community college that students at the university would never get. One of the reasons that helped me make the transition smooth was I was seeing that a lot of the work I was doing at the university, students were kind of still leaving and they were taking antiquated concepts and they weren't getting the bites and feeds that they needed in the job market. I have one student who, when I say phenomenal, this lady is phenomenal. She was my graduate student at A&T. Her name is Anna Huff. Anna is now a top tier cybersecurity person at NSA.
Wow.
The National Security Administration. I mean, and she still talks about the stuff that I did for her as a student and how it's impacted what she's doing today. But that's all because she looked further than just the university. She saw opportunities through the U.S. Naval Academy. She had connections. She was with NSBE, the National Black Engineers Organization. Really, just phenomenal opportunities are out there. But a lot of our students don't get those opportunities. They don't get the internships or they don't find out about them until it's too late. Now you're out kind of scraping by to get employment. And, I talk to ex-offenders sometimes. I go out and I do talks with the ex-offenders. Ask them, I said, what is the one hang up that you have? And a lot of them say, well, I can't find a job. And it's because of their record. But how do we get around that? Entrepreneurship is the key. Nobody can tell you not to start a business.
Right.
If you want to wash cars, that's a business. You want to mow lawns, that's a business.
Right.
You can learn how to do fiber optic and copper cable and work with companies such as Time Warner. That's, I'm giving a little throwback here. Time Warner was Cablevision and that kind of stuff. How can you apply that and let it be instrumental in making a change in your career? And there are people doing just that. If you want to drive truck, there's nobody stopping you from getting a CDL license. You can do it.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head because I think the path forward is by empowering yourself. No
Yes.
one is going to fire themselves. No one can tell you, to your point, what you can and cannot do. And you may be a convicted felon, but if you start a business and the people who work for you aren't convicted felons,
Right.
then that just alleviates that loophole. And there's so many different things that you can do. And I think that we have to be proactive and not reactive. A lot of times in our community, we spend too much time waiting for something to come our way, waiting for an opportunity. We have to create our own opportunities.
Yes.
And there are other people who don't look like us that came here to this country from other parts of the world. And one of the things that they did is they embraced entrepreneurship. You want me to drive the trash truck? I'm going to start my own trash truck company, and then I'm going to get city contracts. And then that'll be a business that runs continuously without me driving the truck, because I can hire people. So now when you get off the boat, I got a job for you. Why can't we do the same thing? Why can't you start a trucking company and give brothers and sisters a path forward through getting their CDL license? Why don't you do as you mentioned before, go into tech, go into whatever the case may be, figure out where are the jobs trending and find a way to ride that wave.
Absolutely.
Far too frequently, unfortunately, we see these brothers and sisters riding that wave on the street. Back in the 80s, fentanyl wasn't a thing, but the market shifted and then everybody's selling fentanyl. So why can't you see fit to follow the market trends in a pro-social manner and figure out where are the jobs heading? Cybersecurity. Nobody understands the threat that they put themselves every day by using their phones, by downloading apps, by clicking links. They have no idea how vulnerable they're making themselves. And no matter what your station in life is, you have a cell phone. So if you're able to come in and educate people on the dangers, especially elderly people and younger people, because children are getting phones earlier and earlier. There was a time in which you didn't get a cell phone until you were in college. Now you're getting cell phones in middle school.
Absolutely.
And if I'm looking to target a vulnerable group of people, I'm targeting old people and younger people. That's a huge lane that I think is wide open. It's beyond what people think the pathways forward are. It's not just entertainment. It's not just sports. It's not just even the professional fields that people know of. As far as, I don't have the aptitude to become a lawyer. I don't have the aptitude to become a doctor. Because there was a time, Dr. Caple, I'm going to keep it completely real with you. And I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast. There was a time in which I said, well, my station is going to be what it is because I have no interest in going back to school. So I just accepted the fact I was going to be part of the working class because I had no interest in going back to school. And I associated elevating my station with going back to school, something that I didn't have an interest in doing.
Right.
But entrepreneurship, to your exact point, afforded me the opportunity to find an escalator from where I was to where I see myself at today. And I did pick a traditional route as it relates to people thinking where the path forward is, which is entertainment. So I am guilty of that. But what I will say, I was able to be afforded the opportunity to look beyond what I just seen on television and heard on the radio, and to understand that there's a whole business behind entertainment. So that was something that allowed me to think bigger, to expand my point of view on who I could be. And that's why I'm so dedicated to sharing these conversations with people, because I know how long it took me to come to that realization. I was in my late 20s. So this didn't happen when I was in college. It didn't happen before college. Before college, I thought my path forward was possibly athletics. But after college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, because the things that really interested me, I didn't think that they were practical. And we have to encourage our kids that you make the determination on what's practical. And if it's not seen to be practical, that's probably the thing you should be doing, because that's where the greatness is. The further you go up that mountain, that air gets thinner, and you want to find yourself in rare air. You want to be able to be that person who has enough forward thinking as they did back in the early 90s. And even up to mid 90s, to some extent, where people were just buying all of these .coms. And people would have thought, like, what are you doing? Why are you buying all these .coms? Like, what is that going to be? Well, that person who had that foresight to buy Coca-Cola.com, they made a pretty penny. Or whatever it might be, Cars.com. I mean, you have to think outside of the box. And now with the rise of AI, and I've heard so many conversations, been a part of discussions, having heard scholars such as Robert F. Smith, entrepreneur, multi-billionaire, talk about how and why we need to embrace AI. We need to pour into our children to get them to understand and realize the thing that's going to allow us to level up is thinking outside of the box and utilizing technology. And we're utilizing technology in a way that we don't even realize it. Everybody has a cell phone. All the
Yes.
kids play video games. It's just a matter of figuring out how can I have you tap into your aptitude and get you to explore something that you may not even be aware of or who you can be. So as a professor, I'm sure you've been able to do that. Now, are you still teaching in the classroom or are you just an entrepreneur at this point in time?
So at this point in time, I am a combination of both.
Okay.
I have my company and I contract out as a federal contractor, but I'm tied right now to the US Department of State as a senior business analyst in cybersecurity. So my work right now focuses on taking systems and applications through a process of authority to operate. And authority to operate is based on the risk management framework. The risk management framework is a 6-step system where we really take a system and we apply mechanics to it for encryption purposes for the government's use. Prime example is Zoom. Zoom is a platform, everybody uses it, but is Zoom encrypted for use by the federal government? And the answer to that is, in its general sense, no. But the federal government has taken Zoom and they've transitioned it to where it's encrypted so it can be used by the federal government. That's where I come in. And I take it from step 1 to step 6. Step 6 being continuous monitoring of it for incidents, cybersecurity awareness, making sure that policies apply to its various controls and systems, and making it useful for the federal government. That's what I'm currently grinding on.
So you're saying if somebody has an app, let's say Teams, Microsoft Teams, and the government wants to use it, then the government will have someone like you say, okay, I need you to take apart, if you will, all of the different elements that would make us vulnerable to a cyber attack and make it where as though that none of the bad actors can get into this platform
Absolutely.
in the capacity in which we want to use it, and then make certain that it is cyber-proofed, courtesy of someone with your expertise, and then realizing the bad actors, they're not going to stop trying to get in. We need you to monitor the platform and make certain that they haven't found a new pathway into the platform. So it can't just be like, hey, I fixed it, you're good to go. It's a continuous thing. It's good to go today,
Yes.
but I got to check it next week to make sure we're still good to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
And that the thing about that is, and so the second part to your question is, so the U.S. Department of State has the Foreign Services Institute, which is the university to the world. So when people say, "Oh, well, you're no longer with the university," I'm with the largest university in the world, the Foreign Service Institute. It is the university that trains our diplomats, our people overseas, abroad, who are working for the benefit of the United States. So every language is taught at the Foreign Service Institute. You got Macedonian, you have Russian, you have beyond Spanish, French, and Italian. You have all of these various languages. And what made me extremely interested in that is that I spent 2 years living in Ghana, in Accra. I was there as a vice president for academic affairs with the university there in Ghana. And the only reason that I did not continue that process is I became very ill. And I had been begged to take that experience. While I was a graduate student, one of my mentors, he spoke to me. He said, "Carlos, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. He's like the Ted Turner of Ghana. And his name is Kojo Yanka. Never will forget it." And we had a conversation, and I didn't pay it much attention. This is like when opportunity knocks, but you're not listening, you're not in tune to it.
Right.
And he said, "I'd love for you to come over and help me develop this university. I have a mass communications university. We're going to teach radio, television, public speaking. We're teaching all of the bells and whistles of mass communication. And I'd love for you to come over and be a part of that." I said, "Okay, I'll think about it." I didn't have a real strong concept of the educational system in Ghana. So all I had to go on was my experiences with mentors. I had a very good mentor with Dr. Asa Hilliard.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the fathers of Afrocentric psychology and education. He mentored me when I first started teaching as a professor. And this is going back to psychology. So all this stuff kind of loops back for me.
All interconnected.
It's all interconnected. As a student, I was a member of an organization called Association of Black Psychologists. And I said, I'm going, I had never really, as an undergraduate student, gone and attended a workshop or a conference and went down to South Carolina and met everybody. Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Naeem Akbar, who was at Florida State University, Dr. Chuck Ashante, who was at NC State. They became mentors from an Afrocentric perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That was phenomenal. And I treasure that experience. Witnessed an installment of their leadership and then a lot of concepts that we take for granted. Now, you're going back to entrepreneurship, but there's something fundamentally unique about us. And I'll just say this as Black men growing from being boys that is innate. The entrepreneurial spirit is there with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that it has to be molded or put into perspective that makes logical sense to us. But a lot of us have those characteristics innate.
Right.
And if they're not taught the right way, then that leads to what the street influence would be. And we've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of that. I've come through the crack epidemic. I've seen, you know, a lot of number of things when I've moved around to different cities, living in Los Angeles, living in Chicago. I've seen the gang violence firsthand. What happens when people are not steered in a direction that is going to give them stability and focus. And
Right.
those things, those opportunities, they have it. It's not something that I have to go and teach a lot of concepts to. They innately pick it up if I start talking about this is the way that you're going to transition at. Now, it's not easy. It does not happen overnight. You're going to have to sit down, write it out, process it, put it on paper, think it out, organize your dollars toward it. Like you're talking earlier about
Mm-hmm.
how to get into podcasting. Those types of things and finding out where those opportunities are from different angles. Is it a community college? Is it at your church? Is it in your school? Who can serve as a mentor to you, a teacher, a pastor, or a family member who has done it before you? A lot of us are not willing to listen to the elders.
Right.
And the elders bring wisdom. Gray hair does not come without wisdom. Now I
Right.
got enough of it. And I look good though.
Right.
That's the thing.
You're a wise brother.
Got to be. Got to be.
This episode of Prepare for Takeoff is brought to you in part by Riverside, the platform that I trust to record studio quality podcasts right from my laptop. With Riverside, I get crystal clear audio and 4K video. Plus, it's super easy to use. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, Riverside helps your podcast sound amazing. Try it out for yourself. Click the affiliate link in our show notes and start recording like a pro with Riverside. Thanks for spending so much time with us, man. You have an amazing story. I'm sure our viewers and listeners have gained so much from this conversation. I know I have. And I wanted to give you the opportunity as we close out to leave us with 3 things that you feel will help our viewers and listeners prepare for takeoff.
3 things to help your viewers and listeners prepare to take off. One is find opportunity. Look, seek, explore beyond the reaches of your office, your living room, your bedroom, wherever you are. Seek opportunities. Look for unique things that match your mindset. North Carolina Military Center. What is that? I got to find out about it. Let me learn about it. Let me Google it. Second thing would be use the technology at hand that we take for granted. AI is a wonderful tool. In the wrong hands, it does some dirty things.
Mm-hmm.
But in the right hand, with the right mindset applied to it, it works phenomenally. Now it's set up where I can drop in my resume, I can drop in documents, and I can say, AI, take these documents, draft me a business plan. I'm not toiling over how to do a business plan anymore. it writes it out for me. So use the tools at hand that will help you grow and benefit. Third, seek out opportunities with Mr. Terry Cyrus. This podcast is phenomenal. It encouraged me in so many ways to hear Dr. Eddie Moore speak on his experiences and how it shaped his life, and to see where he's taken a small concept and it's grown into a phenomenal concept that is far reaching beyond the United States. It goes abroad. He can take it. He's been to Indonesia and Bali, places I hope to go. Just a phenomenal brother altogether, as yourself. And I loved the conversation so much that I had to reach out to you. And then also in leaving, I know that's three, but seek opportunities to work with people like yourself who are phenomenal, who have the concepts. If I don't have it together, Terry Cyrus has it together. I love it. I love it.
Man, I appreciate that. You made my day, man, to give me those words. And it really makes me feel as though what we're doing is really resonating with people. So we're dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. We want to be able to tell these stories. We want to be able to amplify, what people's journeys have consisted of, and let people understand and realize that they didn't start where you see them at. They started somewhere different. It's a journey. They call it a destination for a reason, because you don't start there. So when they see Dr. Caple, he didn't start having done all these great things. He was an extra in Color Purple. Who knew? You know what I'm saying? And me, I grew up in West Virginia, and now, like New York City, I know that like the back of my hand, no different than I would when I go back home to Charleston, West Virginia. It's all about exposure. If I put you in a set of circumstances, you're going to adapt to those circumstances, because if you don't, you'll become extinct. So it's in our nature to adapt to our reality and to our surroundings and circumstances. And like you said, it's in us to be entrepreneurial in nature. It's just that some of our brothers and sisters, they're looking to sell the wrong things. We have to just give them a different variable in that entrepreneurial equation. And you're a testament of all of the things and ways that you can monetize your skill set and expertise. So I'm sure our viewers and listeners, they're going to want to tap in with you and figure out how they can get more of this good game. How can they find you on social media, your website, email, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing?
I am Caple Global Associates, but my primary social media platform at the moment, because of government contracts, is LinkedIn. So I'm linkedin.com/Dr. Carlous Caple. And that's Carlos with a U. It's Portuguese.
That's what's up, man. Dr. Caple, thanks for spending so much time with us, man. I truly appreciate you sharing your journey with our viewers and listeners. And also, I wanted to thank our viewers and listeners, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify, or you're listening to us on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeart, or Pandora. As you know, every week we will continue to feature proven professionals or rising entrepreneurs. And all of these conversations, just like this one, will help you prepare for takeoff. Dr. Caple, thanks for joining us, my brother.
Thank you.